Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today we're going to be exploring the new mass market edition of the Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris. This spirited tarot includes a deck rich in vintage photographs from a wide array of ethnic origins and various walks of life. The ancestors come together to provide not only answers, but also resolution, evolution, truth, and transcendence. They are here to help illuminate that deeper meaning that may or may not have eluded them in life. This is the tarot that offers wisdom from the spirit realm. So this is a re-release of a previously published indie deck by Carrie Paris, and I am so excited to see it available in mass market because this was a deck that was on my wish list and I totally missed out on. So the Relative Tarot is now published by Wiser Books. It comes in this beautiful magnetic box. You can see here it has some questions on the inside that says, "Who am I? What have I come here to do? And how do I find my soul's truth?" I love those questions. I think those are questions that this deck is going to be really. The deck comes with a stunning full color guidebook, which we will take a look at here in a moment. So the deck sits inside the box here. It does have a little ribbon to help you get the cards out easily. And inside it says, "Fare thee well till next we meet." Beautiful. So we have the magnetic closed box, the beautiful full color guidebook, and of course the beautiful cards, which have this lovely aged antique kind of wallpaper background. It is gold gilded. The cardstock is a little bit on the glossy side, but I think it really captures the idea of photographs really well. You can see we have a border and the title down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and jump into this beautiful deck. So we begin our journey with the major arcana as we normally do with our Fool. Here we have our Magician, our High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, our Hierophant. And in this deck, we have 3 Lovers cards so that you can choose which one you would like to include. We have our Lovers card with our traditional male-female, our Lovers card with our 2 females, and our Lovers card with our 2 males. We have our Chariot. And in this deck, we also have 2 Strength and Justice cards so that you can pick which position you'd like to see them in. So we have Strength in position 8, as well as Justice in position 8. Here we have our Hermit, our Wheel of Fortune, and again, we see our Strength and Justice cards with Strength at 11 and Justice at 11. We have our Hanged Man, our Death card, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and finally the Universe. Moving into our minor arcana, here we have our Suit of Cups with the Ace, the 2 of Cups, the 3 of Cups, 4 of Cups, and our 5, 6 of Cups, 7 of Cups, 8 of Cups, our 9, 10, Page of Cups, our Knight, our Queen, and our King of Cups. Next we have our Suit of Wands with our Ace, 2 of Wands, our 3, 4 of Wands, 5, 6 of Wands, 7 of Wands, or 8 of Wands, 9, 10. Moving into our quartz, we have our Page, our Knight, our Queen of Wands, and our King. In our suit of pentacles, here we have our Ace, our Two of Pentacles, the 3, the 4 of Pentacles, our 5, the 6, 7 of Pentacles, our 8 of Pentacles, the 9 of Pentacles, and our 10. Here we have our Page, our Knight, our Queen of Pentacles, and our King. And finally, we have our suit of swords with our Ace, 2 of Swords, our 3, 4 of Swords, 5 of Swords, and our 6, 7 of Swords, 8 of Swords, 9, our 10, and our Court with our Page, the Knight, the Queen of Swords, and our King. So now that we've had a quick flip through the cards, I just want to talk about a couple of things. I really appreciate the fact that this deck actually includes multiple cards. We'll talk about those here in a moment. And one of the things that I do love is that we see the photographs, the vintage photographs, mixed in with elements from Pixie's artwork. So here you can see kind of the dog and the cliff in the Fool. We have the Magician standing in the background here of our Magician. You can see the pillars from the High Priestess. Here is our Emperor, and he's actually sitting on the Emperor's throne. The Hierophant, you can see, has been overlaid with the robes from Pixie's Hierophant. I think that's really cool. Another thing that I really appreciate about this deck is that we have 3 different options for our lovers. So you can choose the one that resonates with you or maybe pertains to the situation or the reading that you're doing. I think that is fantastic when deck creators give us options. Another thing that I really appreciate about this deck is that we have multiple strength and justice cards so that you can choose whether you want to have strength at 8 or 11, depending on your preferred system of tarot, as well as justice at position 8 or 11. And I love that that's been included. It does make it more open for people like me who don't necessarily read strictly Rider-Waite-Smith. So I just wanted to make a quick mention of those couple of things. But I think the really fascinating thing about this particular deck is actually in the guidebook, and the fact that it kind of takes you through this whole process of connecting with this deck in a very unique way. So let's go ahead and dive right into that. So here you can see we have our traditional table of contents, and you can tell by the table of contents that this is not your typical guidebook, which I think is really cool. This book actually functions kind of one part like a guidebook, one part instruction manual, and one part kind of workbook-esque, which is so cool. And I am so excited to dig into this even more and really explore these different activities with this particular deck. So you can see we have the major arcana, the minor arcana, which talk about working with this deck in a blueprint format. So let's go ahead and flip through so we can jump in. There was a relative Facebook group, perhaps still is, but they helped gather some of the photos for this particular deck. I'm not super familiar with the indie edition and what was included and how it all came about. I really heard about this deck like after the fact, after it had gone out of print and everything. So I can't really speak to that. I know there are some videos out there on kind of comparing this to the indie edition. I know that Bonnie from Old Soul Mermaid has one. I'll leave that linked for you in the description box below if you want to see a side-by-side comparison, because I only have the mass market edition to show you. But let's go ahead and just read a little bit from the introduction. It says, "It's all relative. Welcome to the Relative Tarot. If you've been drawn here, dear diviner, chances are it's for very good reason. As you will soon learn, this tarot is unique as the deck's animating force is the love of our very own beloved ancestors. It began years ago, as most creative projects do, with a spark of an idea to create a majors and court cards only featuring portraits of my readers' relatives. I received more portraits with requests to honor these relatives, their unique character, wisdom, energy, and life and death experiences, and so they were included into what has now evolved into a precious gathering, a soul family. The ancestors have truly come together in the spirit of providing not only answers, but resolution, evolution, truth, and transcendence. They are here to help illuminate that deeper meaning that may or may not have eluded them in life. I think that is wonderful. I love the whole idea of this project, the way this project came about. I am so thrilled to see that a mass market publisher has picked it up so that it is readily available for us all. So let's dive into what's really interesting about this deck. So here we have the major arcana with the birth and annual cards. So it says the aim of the relative tarot is to allow you to create a divine tarot blueprint that will illuminate who you are and what you're here to do. While your blueprint aligns with your purpose and your soul's truth, the relative tarot, particularly, has been designed to let you experience this connection through an ancestral filter. And in this way, we can focus on how ancient inheritances may be affecting not only our personal evolution, but that of the ancestral line. So then she talks about the setup of this blueprint, which is fantastic. You get basically a step-by-step process of creating your own tarot blueprint. So we have the birth cards, which are derived from the major arcana and serve as springboards to the soul's expression. We have annual cards are also derived from the major arcana and are used to presage the climate of the upcoming year. We have the significator cards are selected from the court cards, and these ancestral cards connect us to our generational imprint and reveal what could be reigning over our choices and behaviors. So she talks a little bit about the twin cards where you can choose whether to have your strength and justice at 8 or 11, which I appreciate, and the 3 different lovers cards. So then we go through the whole process of building this tarot blueprint, which is fantastic. So here we can see a little bit of information about what is on the cards. So you may have noticed in all the cards there are numbers in both of the bottom corners of the deck, and each of those do have a significance and a correspondence. So on the left-hand side we have the corresponding major arcana birth card numbers, and then on the right-hand side we have the corresponding minor arcana card pairings. So that's quite interesting. I'm curious to see how this all works together. So here we have information about calculating your birth card number. So she walks you through the entire process and helps you select the cards that you need. There's some information about double number cards and single number birth cards, so you can check and see which one you are using for those. Then you can calculate your annual card. So she gives information on how to do that. And then we move into working with the minor arcana, which is the inner expression and soul cards. So this is our inner expression, our truth, our highest good, and our outer expression or social identity, which we'll use to explore our ancestral imprint and our shadow, those integrating aspects of ourselves that are kept hidden and which will become our soul's greatest mentor. And then she gives us examples of all of the major arcana blueprint combinations here. So this, to me, is completely fascinating because this is not a traditional guidebook. If you are unfamiliar with what the cards mean and maybe need some keywords, you might want to work with this alongside a traditional reference because it does follow the Rider-Waite-Smith system, so you could use any guidebook for that. I think that would work quite well, but I love that this does something totally different. So here we have a blueprint review where she basically walks you through and helps you put all of this information together. We have more about our shadow cards, and then we go into the court cards and the significators. So here we're looking at determining your significator. And then we have the energies here listed. So we have for King, this is a mature adult, Yang energy in their late 30s plus. You can see Queen, Knight, and Page. And then we have the 9 tarot blueprints. So patterns, breakers, imprints, and mentors. Says the Relative Tarot allows you not only to connect with your blueprint, but also to scry these cards for key pieces of a divine puzzle. Take one minor arcana card at a time and pair it with your birth card. The keywords listed are very basic and want you to explore and expand on where and to what degree they might reside within your experience. So this is talking about using the minor arcana cards to really dive deeper. So here you can see an example with the Magician, the Wheel, and the Sun. And here we have our corresponding minor arcana cards. And she does include keywords for each, so you can touch upon that there. So I think that's really fascinating. It says the main goal of this little white book is to help you chart and master birth and annual card profiles while opening a channel for ancestral communication. And while there are additional methods for divining with the Relative Tarot, they far exceed the number of pages in this booklet. I think that's wonderful. This is fascinating to me because I can use this tarot deck as a normal tarot, and we'll do some playing with that as well. But I can also use this tarot deck to help me create that tarot blueprint. And you better believe I'm gonna be doing that. That to me is so fascinating, and I love the idea of working with the cards for creating your blueprint, for creating your ancestral information, and tapping into that wisdom through these particular cards. I cannot wait to dive more into this and see what comes up for me. So if that is something that you are interested in, this might be a fantastic deck to pick up to help you navigate that process. If you're someone who's interested in working with birth cards and annual cards, and then of course diving into that deeper ancestral layer, I think this is a fantastic resource for that. So I'm really excited to go ahead and do that myself and to dive into it. So while I think it's fantastic that this deck is attuned to a certain purpose and does have a certain sort of practice built into it, I do want to see how it functions as just a general tarot deck. So I've gone ahead and pulled the extra cards out of the deck so that we just have a 78 tarot deck to work with here. Again, I love the choices that have been made in terms of what the creator has added into these cards to bring in that RWS inspired elements. So here with the Hermit, with the Lantern. Again, the cardstock is fairly glossy, but I think for a deck like this that is comprised of photographs, I think it actually works quite well. We have the gold gilding here. Let's give it a shuffle and see how it does. It does feel like it is a little bit larger than a standard tarot size. So let's just pull out. Here we have the Greenwich Tarot, which is a standard Llewellyn deck, and you can see that it is a little bit larger, a little bit wider, a little bit taller, maybe closer to some of the taller US Games size decks, but I think it's still a pretty nice size for a tarot. I can still get my hands around it, which is always a consideration for me. As I've mentioned many times, I do have small hands, so often I struggle with even normal size tarot decks, but this one I am able to get my hands around, and it riffle shuffles really well. We'll see about the gilding. You know, gilding's not my favorite. I think it's actually quite beautiful on this deck and really does fit the energy and the aesthetic of the deck well. So I'm not super sad about it, let's put it that way. So we can riffle shuffle it, we can overhand it. Again, it is a little bit larger, so I do struggle a little bit more than probably most people would, but I think it does look really beautiful, and I'm so excited to have this one to be able to try. But let's see how it works as just a typical tarot deck, because while it's really cool that it has like a specific function and you can use it to create a very specific type of reading or practice or process, I do want to be able to use this just in a general sense as I would any other tarot deck in my collection. And so I thought we would do some card pairings with it. So the deck that immediately came to mind that I wanted to pair the Relative Tarot with is the Divine Muses Oracle. Now this is a indie produced deck. I will leave a link for you in the description box below. This is one of the few Oracle decks that I do actually dive into the guidebook as well, because there are fantastic messages in there. And I feel like these two decks both tap into ancestral energy beautifully, and I feel like they're going to have some really wonderful things to say. They're both a similar art style where we have photo collaging going on. They are primarily vintage style images, and I am really excited to see how they converse together. Here we have the Muse of Poetry between the Knight of Wands and the Eight of Wands. It's quite beautiful. I think that this would be a wonderful deck to also maybe pull in to have a sort of wrap up from ancestor, or to even use as a focal point for what do the ancestors want me to know right now. So here we have the Muse of Eloquence between the Queen of Pentacles and Judgment. So maybe that is what the ancestors want me to know right now. And I was so excited to give this pairing a try because the Divine Muses is a wonderful deck, and it's a really powerful reader that I enjoy using quite a bit. And so I'm always excited when I find a tarot deck that really complements and draws even more richness and depth out of my oracle. It's just fantastic. It's kind of like a match made in heaven in that sense. So here we have the Wounded Healer between the Eight of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles. That's quite interesting. Obviously, I didn't shuffle the relative tarot super well, but we can still get a sense of the play that and the conversation and the interaction between these two decks, which was really what I was looking at. Of course, aesthetically speaking, I think they're beautiful together. They both have the same kind of energy, the same type of vibe, but I'm really looking at what the two decks can bring out of each other. And I think that the images and the messages all come together to create this beautiful message between these two decks. So another oracle that I was excited to pair this deck with is another indie deck, this one by Danny Mystic, and this is the Pear Tree Court. One of the things that I love, besides the fact that aesthetically, they're stunning. I love the keywords in Danny's deck. Also, the write-ups in her little guidebook are fantastic, and I felt like the Pear Tree Court would just create a wonderful focal point because we have really succinct keywords that we can dive into. So here we have Deceit between the Two of Cups and the Six of Wands. I love an oracle deck with really powerful, succinct keywords, and I feel like these give me something to focus in on, and then I can use my tarot to expand upon that message, as I like to do with my cards, particularly when I'm pairing my tarot and oracle together. So here we have Caution between Death and the Emperor. That could be a really powerful message there, being really cautious when we're looking at Death and the Emperor, both two very, very powerful energies. Then there might be a lot to be learned there, but there's definitely places where we need to exercise some caution. I think that's wonderful. So here we have Inspiration between the Ten of Wands and the Nine of Swords. I mean, just look how beautiful these decks are together. Again, I love the really powerful keywords on the Pear Tree Court, and I think they just create a wonderful focal point for the relative tarot. Here we have Contentment between the Three of Cups and Strength. So again, another really beautiful pairing. I think the Pear Tree Court just creates a really wonderful focal point. Really let me use the relative tarot to expand upon that idea. So this time, let's take a look at this deck paired with a mass market oracle. This is the Botanical Inspirations. It's one of my favorite oracles. I pair it with all kinds of things. There's so many things about this deck that I love, but I thought the vintage vibe, along with the idea of the keyword and the key phrase and the takeaway message, would be really wonderful for, again, creating a focal point or perhaps a takeaway for our reading with the relative tarot. So here we have the Morning Glory with Affection and Determination between our two aces. That's quite interesting. Aesthetically speaking, I feel like these are two decks that, of course, go together beautifully. They both have that vintage vibe to them. So we have Love at First Sight and Proud Spirit between the Ace of Cups and the Sun. That's quite lovely. So here we have Strength of Character and Moral Integrity between the Lovers and Justice. How beautiful is that? This idea of really making choices that are in alignment with our highest good, that are really balancing out our moral scales there, keeping us in our true north. I think that's fantastic. Here we have Thankfulness and Understanding between our Eight of Swords and the Queen of Cups. That's beautiful. I also love the little quotes on the bottoms of the cards in the Botanical Inspirations. I think they create a lot of depth as well that we can tap into. So here we have enlightenment between the Four of Swords and the Tower. We have this figure here who is sitting in the lotus position, and they are looking like they are really seeking that enlightenment. They're getting very, very quiet. They're going still within, and maybe the change is coming, and the change is going to come from sitting in that moment of stillness and meditation. And as it says here with the quote, no mud, no lotus, no tower, no change. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Here we have beauty and happiness between the Chariot and the King of Pentacles. That's quite lovely. Let's just do one more maybe. Cheerfulness between the Five of Swords and the Nine of Cups. Maybe this is a reminder that there are good things that come out of hard times. So again, that's the Botanical Inspirations Oracle paired with our Relative Tarot. So really beautiful deck. I'm excited to dive into this one, not only to just use it as a regular tarot deck, which I think it'll serve very well as, but to also use it in conjunction with the guidebook and really creating my own tarot blueprint. That's something that I am looking forward to diving into. I love these images with these photographs of people's ancestors. We're mixing in that little bits of hints of Pixie's artwork, which is fantastic. And I just really have come around to collage decks or photo collage decks over the years. Some of them now are just being gorgeously created, gorgeously produced. And I think this is a wonderful example of that. It's really clever. It's beautifully produced. And I really love the idea of tying in that ancestral energy and the idea of, creating that tarot blueprint, of course, but just the idea of using it as a general tarot, just to pull it for readings at any time. I love that it's kind of dual purpose in that way. If you're familiar with tarot and the Rider-Waite-Smith, this is a deck that you will have no trouble using, I don't think, because you can see the classic elements are still there. Here's our Five Swords, still there. Our Five Pentacles in the stained glass window that we often see in Pixie's artwork is still there. Our Nine Wands in the background here. And I think it's just clever, and I really enjoy the way that Carrie Paris has merged those two things together. I think it's very beautifully done, and I'm really excited to dive into it. Like I said, not only to do the tarot blueprint, which I think is going to be not only really insightful, but a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to using this just as a general everyday type of a reader, because I think it's going to work beautifully for that as well. And it's just a gorgeous deck. So that's a peek at the new mass market edition of the Relative Tarot by Carrie Paris. I'd like to thank Wiser Books for sending me this deck to share with you today. I cannot wait to dive into this practice and see what comes of it. I'm excited to do my tarot blueprint, but as I mentioned, I'm also excited just to use the deck for an everyday reader. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this deck, so please feel free to share with me in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.